The Book of Five Rings, by Miyamoto Musashi. Introduction. He was 13 years old. Not a man, just a boy, but with a fire in his heart that had been burning since he was old enough to hold a wooden sword. Standing before him was a grown man, a strategist from a respected school of martial arts, a man named Arima Kihei. To any onlooker, it was a mismatch, a tragedy waiting to happen. But the boy, Miyamoto Musashi, didn't see it that way. In the clash that followed, it was the boy who struck down the master. This was the first of more than 60 duels. For the next 16 years, from that first victory at 13 to the age of 29, Musashi traveled across Japan, challenging the most famous warriors of his time. And he never lost. Not once. You might think that after a record like that, a man would believe he had mastered his craft. But this is where the real story begins. This is what separates a mere fighter from a true master. At the age of 30, Musashi stopped and looked back on his life of unbroken victory. And what he realized is the first great lesson for us today. He saw that his wins weren't the result of true strategy. Maybe it was natural talent, he thought. Maybe it was luck, or the will of heaven. Or maybe, just maybe, the other schools were simply not that good. That single moment of profound humility sent him on a new quest. For the next 20 years, he didn't just fight, he studied. He searched for the true principle, the deep, underlying way of strategy. And at the age of 50, he finally found it. The book we're exploring today, The Book of Five Rings, is the culmination of that lifelong journey. It was written in the final years of his life, not in a grand monastery or a bustling city, but alone, in a cave on Mount Iwato, as a final offering to the world. This isn't just a manual on sword fighting. Far from it. This book has been a secret weapon for leaders, artists, and thinkers for nearly 400 years. It's a blueprint for the mind of a strategist, a guide to a life of purpose, discipline, and victory. So, my promise to you is this: by the end of our time together, you will understand the timeless philosophy of Japan's greatest swordsman. You won't just learn a few tactics for competition, you will discover a way of thinking that can bring clarity, focus, and an unshakable spirit to everything you do, whether it's in the classroom, on the playing field, or in the quiet pursuit of your own dreams. Let's begin the journey. Book summary. So, where does a master like Musashi begin to explain a lifetime of wisdom? Not with a fancy sword technique or a secret move. He begins with something far more grounded, far more essential. He begins with the idea of a craftsman. Imagine a master carpenter. Not just someone who can hammer a nail, but a true foreman, responsible for building a grand temple or a palace. This foreman, Musashi tells us, is the model for a strategist. Think about it for a moment. The carpenter doesn't just show up with a bag of tools and start swinging. His work begins with a plan, a master blueprint for the entire structure. He must understand the rules of architecture, the laws of nature, and the purpose of the building. In the same way, a strategist must have a campaign plan, a clear vision of the final victory. But a plan is useless without the right materials. The master carpenter knows his wood. He sees a piece of timber that is straight, beautiful, and without knots, and he knows, this will be a main pillar, something everyone will see. He finds another piece that's strong but has a few small defects. He uses that for the inner pillars, where strength matters more than appearance. Even a piece of wood that is gnarled and knotted, but fundamentally strong, has its place. It can be used discreetly, hidden within the construction where its power can be leveraged without anyone seeing its flaws. And the weakest, most knotted wood, that becomes scaffolding, used to build up the real structure, and then it becomes firewood. Nothing is wasted. This, Musashi says, is exactly how a commander, a leader, a strategist, must view their people. The foreman assigns tasks based on ability. The highly skilled work on the fine carvings and sliding doors, those with less skill lay the floor joists, and the apprentices carve wedges and do the simple, necessary tasks. He doesn't ask the apprentice to build the main shrine, and he doesn't ask the master carver to haul firewood. He knows their strengths and weaknesses, he encourages them when their morale is low, and he asks nothing unreasonable of them. When a leader deploys people this well, the finished work is always good. This simple, powerful analogy is the foundation of Musashi's entire philosophy. Strategy is not some mystical, aggressive art. It is a craft. It is a practical, grounded discipline. And just like the individual carpenter who must first learn to sharpen his own tools and master his plane and axe, the individual warrior, the student, the athlete, the artist, must first master their own fundamentals. Musashi called this foundational understanding the groundwork. It's the first of his 5 scrolls, because without solid ground beneath your feet, you can't build anything of lasting value. For him, the way of the warrior was a twofold way of pen and sword. It wasn't enough to be strong, you had to be wise. It wasn't enough to act, you had to think and reflect. He saw too many people in his time who were focused only on the flower, not the nut. They learned flashy techniques and showed off their skills to look impressive, seeking profit and fame. But Musashi warns that immature strategy is the cause of grief. True strategy is about substance, not style. It is based on overcoming your opponent, yes, but more deeply, it is based on overcoming yourself. It is, he says, the resolute acceptance of death. Now, that sounds intense, I know. But what he means is a total commitment to the moment, without fear holding you back. It's about being so dedicated to the way that you are prepared to sacrifice everything. When you reach that level of commitment, your actions become pure, decisive, and powerful. With this solid ground established, Musashi then asks us to change our state of mind. He asks us to become like water. This is the lesson of his second scroll, the Water Book. Why water? Because water is the ultimate model of adaptability. It has no fixed shape. Pour it into a cup, it becomes the cup. Pour it into a riverbed, it flows like a river. It can be a gentle trickle or a raging sea, but its essence never changes. This is how your spirit must be in strategy, and in life. He says, both in fighting and in everyday life you should be determined though calm. This is a crucial balance. Not tense, but not reckless either. Your spirit should be settled, yet always ready to move. He warns against being overspirited, which is weak, and underspirited, which is also weak. The goal is a centered, calm, and powerful readiness. And this inner state is reflected in your physical presence. Your stance, he teaches, should be your everyday stance. You don't adopt some special, artificial fighting pose. Your combat stance should feel as natural as your posture when you're walking down the street, and vice versa. Your head is erect, shoulders are down, and your core is braced. You are rooted, yet relaxed. From this stance, we learn how to see. And for Musashi, the gaze is everything. He calls it the twofold gaze, perception and sight. Sight is what you see with your eyes, the enemy's sword, his hands, his feet. But if you focus only on these small movements, you'll be distracted and easily fooled. Perception is different. Perception is seeing with your spirit. It's the ability to see the whole situation, the enemy's intention, his rhythm, his state of mind. Musashi says your gaze should be large and broad. You see distant things as if they were close, and take a distanced view of things that are right in front of you. It's about seeing the forest, not just the trees. This flexible, water-like spirit is what allows a strategist to defeat not just one man, but 10 million men. Because, as Musashi realized, the principle is the same. The spirit of defeating a man is the same for 10 million men. A strategist makes small things into big things, like building a giant statue of Buddha from a 1-foot model. Once you understand the core principle, you can apply it on any scale. This is the essence of his teaching, having one thing, to know 10,000 things. This is a powerful idea. It means that if you truly master one thing, one instrument, one subject in school, one sport, not just the techniques but the deep principles behind it, you gain an intuitive understanding that you can apply everywhere else in your life. Now, having established the solid ground and the fluid spirit, we move into the heart of conflict. We move into the fire book. Fire, Musashi says, is the spirit of fighting. It's fierce, whether it's a small flame or a raging inferno. This is where he gets into the practicalities of battle, but again, every physical lesson is really a lesson for the mind. One of the most important concepts in the fire book is the idea of taking the initiative. You can't be passive. You can't just wait for things to happen. A strategist must always seek to control the rhythm of the engagement. Musashi outlines 3 ways to do this, 3 ways to forestall the enemy. The first is the most obvious. You attack first. This is called ken no sen. You see an opening, and you move in with calm, decisive speed. The second is more subtle. It's called tai no sen, which means to wait for the initiative. This doesn't mean being passive. It means when the enemy attacks, you remain completely undisturbed. You might even feign weakness to draw him in. But just as he reaches you, at the very moment he commits, you explode into action, taking advantage of the disorder in his timing to win. It's like a master boxer letting his opponent punch himself out, then landing the perfect counterpunch. The third method is perhaps the most advanced. It's called tai no sen. This is when you and the enemy attack at the same time. As your opponent moves, you join his movement, flowing with it, but you are just a fraction of a second quicker. Your spirit is just a little calmer, and you redirect his own momentum to defeat him. Underlying all 3 is one key principle. You must see through the enemy's spirit and grasp his strategy before he can execute it. Musashi uses a wonderful phrase for this. He calls it holding down a pillow. Imagine trying to hold a pillow down. The moment you let up, it springs back. The idea is to never allow the enemy's head to rise. You must suppress his useful actions but allow his useless ones. When he is about to attack, you check his attack at the syllable et. When he is about to jump, you check his jump at the syllable ju. You are always one step ahead, not just reacting to his moves, but smothering his intentions before they can even become actions. This proactive mindset applies to everything. Musashi talks about crossing at a ford. A ford is a shallow place in a river where you can cross. In life, and in any contest, there are moments of opportunity, strategic crossings. A wise captain knows the route, the condition of his ship, and waits for a favorable wind. When the conditions are right, he sets sail, even if others stay in the harbor. Crossing at a ford means knowing your own strengths, discerning your opponent's weaknesses, and attacking that weak point to gain an advantageous position. This is how you win. Not by being stronger or faster in every situation, but by being smarter. You use the terrain. You stand with the sun at your back so it blinds your opponent. You chase him into awkward places with bad footing, where his skill is neutralized. You don't fight his strengths, you render them irrelevant. You also have to understand rhythm and collapse. Musashi notes that everything, houses, bodies, and armies, can collapse when its rhythm becomes deranged. In a fight, an opponent will eventually lose their timing and begin to fall apart. A true strategist sees this collapse the moment it begins and pursues relentlessly, giving the enemy no chance to recover. If you let that opportunity pass, they may regain their composure, and you won't get a second chance. All of these ideas from the Firebook, forestalling, holding down the pillow, crossing at a ford, and exploiting collapse, are about controlling the mental and physical space of a conflict. It's a dynamic, intelligent, and highly psychological approach to victory. But how can you truly know yourself if you don't understand others? This is the central question of the 4th scroll, the Wind Book. By wind, Musashi means the traditions and habits of other schools of strategy. In this section, he critiques the common flaws he saw in other warriors and their teachings. He does this not to be arrogant, but to teach a vital lesson. You must study your competition, understand their assumptions, and see their limitations. If you don't know others, you can't truly know yourself. For example, he saw schools that were obsessed with using extra long swords. Their whole strategy was based on keeping the enemy at a distance. Musashi saw this as a weakness. It showed a spirit dependent on a single tool, a fear of closing the distance. What happens, he asks, when you're forced to fight in a confined space, or armed only with a short sword? Your entire strategy falls apart. The inclination toward one specific weapon, he argues, is a sign of a narrow spirit. He also criticizes schools that fixate on speed. Speed, he says, is not the true way. A true master never appears fast or hurried. He moves with a deliberate rhythm that is always appropriate to the situation. Beginners try to rush, and because they are rushing, their rhythm becomes chaotic and busy. But a skillful person is always deliberate, never out of time. Trying to be fast for the sake of being fast is a trap. It makes you predictable and easily influenced by your opponent. Another flaw he points out is the obsession with footwork. Some schools taught jumping feet, floating feet, all sorts of nimble, fancy steps. Musashi disliked all of them. Why? Because the way must be trod firmly. You walk as you normally do in the street, with your feet always under your control. What good is a fancy jumping step if you find yourself fighting on swampy ground or a narrow rocky path? A true strategy works everywhere, in any condition. It is not dependent on ideal circumstances. By studying these other schools, Musashi isn't just pointing out their flaws. He's teaching us to look for dogma in our own thinking. Where are we relying on a single tool? Where are we obsessed with one attribute, like speed or strength, at the expense of true, adaptable strategy? The Wind Book is a mirror. It forces us to examine the traditions and habits we take for granted and ask if they truly serve us on the path to victory. And this leads us to the final, most profound scroll. The Book of the Void. After all the lessons on grounding, adaptability, combat, and knowing others, what is left? Nothing. The void. But this is not a negative, empty nothingness. For Musashi, the void is the ultimate state of mind, where the true way is realized. The void is that which has no beginning and no end. It is a state of being where your spirit is not clouded by the slightest confusion or bewilderment. Think about it this way. When you first learn to drive a car, you are hyper-aware of everything. Your hands are gripping the wheel, your eyes are darting between mirrors, your mind is racing. Check blind spot, signal, accelerate, brake. It's a clumsy, conscious effort. But after years of practice, you just drive. You merge onto the freeway while having a conversation, perfectly in tune with the flow of traffic. You are no longer thinking about driving. You have reached a state of unconscious competence. Your actions are natural, spontaneous, and correct. This is the spirit of the void. It's when you have practiced and trained so diligently, day by day, hour by hour, that the way of strategy becomes a part of you. You no longer need to think about the principles of water, fire, or wind. You simply embody them. You can hit the enemy naturally and strike naturally, because you are moving in perfect harmony with the rhythm of the situation. Musashi says that people often mistake bewilderment for the void. They think that what they don't understand must be some deep, mystical secret. But that's not it. The true void isn't confusion, it's perfect clarity. It is a spirit of nothingness, because there is no ego, no fear, no hesitation, only pure, direct action. This is the destination of the warrior's journey. It begins on the solid ground of fundamentals. It flows with the adaptability of water. It burns with the intensity of fire. It learns from the winds of other traditions. And finally, it arrives at the quiet, powerful clarity of the void. To help his students reach this place, Musashi left behind 9 simple principles to live by. They are the essence of the groundbook, but they lead directly to the void. They are: 1. Do not think dishonestly. 2. The way is in training. 3. Become acquainted with every art. 4. Know the ways of all professions. 5. Distinguish between gain and loss in worldly matters. 6. Develop intuitive judgment and understanding for everything. 7. Perceive those things which cannot be seen. 8. Pay attention even to trifles. 9. Do nothing which is of no use. These are not rules for fighting. They are rules for living. And that is Musashi's ultimate secret. The way of strategy is not something you do. It is something you become. Commentary. When you peel back the layers of Miyamoto Musashi's work, you realize you're not holding a book about swords and combat. You're holding a guide to life. Its power lies in its translation of the highest stakes imaginable, a life or death duel, into a philosophy for navigating our own, much quieter battles. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the journey from technician to strategist. So many of us get stuck at the level of technique. We learn the formulas in math class, the specific moves in a sport, the right words to say in a presentation. We become good technicians. But Musashi is pushing us to go deeper. He's asking us to become strategists in our own lives. A strategist doesn't just know the moves, they understand the entire game. They see the underlying principles, the rhythm of the situation, the psychology of the opponent, and of themselves. They have a plan, like the master carpenter, but their spirit is fluid, like water, ready to adapt to whatever comes their way. This philosophy is more relevant today than ever. We live in a world that encourages distraction and superficiality. Musashi's way is a powerful antidote. It calls for deep focus, constant training, and an unwavering commitment to self-mastery. His critique of those who chase the flower instead of the nut is a perfect description of so much of modern culture, which often values appearance over substance. So how can we bring this ancient wisdom into our modern lives? Here are a few simple ways to start walking Musashi's path today. First, practice what he calls making your everyday stance your combat stance. This doesn't mean you should be tense all the time. It means the opposite. It means bringing a sense of calm, centered awareness to everything you do. When you're doing your homework, be fully present. When you're talking to a friend, truly listen. Eliminate the distinction between practice and real life. Your life is the training ground. Be determined, though calm, in all things. Second, embrace the twofold way of the pen and sword. Whatever your chosen craft is, your sword, balance it with reflection and study. Your pen. If you're an athlete, don't just train your body, study the theory and strategy of your sport. If you're a student, don't just memorize facts, reflect on what they mean and how they connect. Action combined with deep thought is the path to true mastery. Finally, live by Musashi's ninth principle, do nothing which is of no use. This is a powerful filter for your life. Look at your habits, your commitments, the way you spend your time. Are you doing things that serve your purpose, that move you along your way, or are you getting caught up in trifles? This isn't about becoming a robot. It's about being intentional. It's about making sure your actions are aligned with your goals, so that your life itself becomes a work of masterful strategy. The journey of the warrior is long. As Musashi said, step by step walk the 1,000-mile road. Victory is not just a single event, it is a daily practice. Today is victory over yourself of yesterday. Tomorrow is your victory over lesser men. It begins, always, with mastering yourself. That was a summary of the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. We've touched on the great lessons today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you walk the path yourself. The true magic happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with you in a way you didn't expect. This overview is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time and attention. If anything we've talked about has sparked a fire in you, grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself and the world around you. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Your support helps us continue this mission of learning and growing together. Thank you for joining me.